What would you do if the girl you loved for months handed you a literal friend zone membership card with your face drawn on it? Because that's exactly what happened to me, and I still carry that piece of cardboard in my wallet today, 8 years later. This is the story of how my desperation to be the nice guy turned me into my own worst enemy. I was 19 years old, working at a trendy downtown cafe, and every single day I got to work alongside the most beautiful girl I'd ever seen. Elena was 18, with these piercing green eyes and a laugh that could make me forget my own name. She was the younger sister of Jake, a guy from my marketing class who I barely knew but suddenly became my best friend because, well, you know why. But here's the thing that's eating me alive right now. 8 years later, I had every possible opportunity to make something happen with her. Every single one. Our manager, Michelle, this cool early 30s woman who treated the cafe like her personal matchmaking service, literally offered us the storage room downstairs for private conversations. The entire staff was shipping us. Customers asked if we were dating. Even Elena's own brother was dropping hints. But I couldn't pull the trigger. And what happened next didn't just break my heart. It shattered my entire sense of self-worth in a way that I'm still recovering from today. Let me take you back to how this whole disaster started. It was October 2016, and I had just started working at Grind Coffee, this hipster cafe near campus where all the college kids hung out. I needed the money because my parents had this brilliant idea that I should learn financial responsibility by paying for my own gas and entertainment. On my third day, Jake mentioned his sister was starting work there too. "You'll like her," he said with this weird smirk. "She's different." Different was an understatement. When Elena walked through that cafe door wearing her green apron for the first time, time literally stopped. I'm not being dramatic here. I was in the middle of steaming milk and completely forgot what I was doing. The machine started making this horrible screeching sound, and I just stood there like an idiot while Michelle rushed over to turn it off. "Smooth, Romeo," Michelle laughed, and Elena giggled. That giggle. It was like a drug I instantly became addicted to. But here's where my nice guy programming kicked in. Instead of introducing myself like a normal human being, I spent the next hour finding excuses to help her learn the register, show her where we kept supplies, and explain the coffee recipes she already knew because she'd been drinking coffee longer than I had. I was already putting myself in the helper role, the safe zone, the friend zone. And Elena? She ate it up, but not in the way I thought. Over the next few weeks, Elena and I developed what I thought was this amazing connection. We'd stay after our shifts, sitting on the small balcony behind the cafe, sharing leftover pastries and talking about everything. Our dreams, our fears, our families, our terrible taste in music. I learned that she wanted to be a graphic designer, that she had this secret talent for drawing portraits, that she was terrified of butterflies but loved horror movies, that she bit her lip when she was thinking hard about something. I memorized everything about her. But here's the thing I didn't realize at the time. While I was busy being her emotional support system and her personal cheerleader, I was never being her potential romantic partner. Every conversation followed the same pattern. She'd tell me about some guy who was texting her, some date that went wrong, some drama with her friends. And I'd listen. I'd listen for hours, offering advice, validating her feelings, being the perfect shoulder to cry on. I was her therapist, her gay best friend, her brother, everything except the guy she might actually want to kiss. And the worst part? Deep down, I knew exactly what I was doing wrong. But I was too terrified to change it. Because changing it meant risking everything. The breaking point came during our November shifts. We were working the closing shift together, just Elena, me, and Michelle, when this guy walked in. Tall, confident, wearing a leather jacket like he was auditioning for a bad boy movie. He ordered a simple black coffee, but the way he looked at Elena while ordering it, there was this electricity in the air that I had never created, not once in all our hours of deep conversations. "What time do you get off?" he asked her directly, ignoring me completely even though I was standing right there. Elena blushed. Actually blushed. We close at 9. "Perfect. I'll pick you up at 9:15. And just like that, he was gone. No long conversation. No emotional support. No friendship building. Just pure, confident intention. I spent the rest of that shift watching Elena check her reflection in every shiny surface, seeing her excitement, her nervousness, her anticipation. For him, this stranger who had spoken to her for 30 seconds. That night, I went home and stared at myself in the mirror for an hour, asking the question that was destroying me from the inside. What does he have that I don't? But I already knew the answer, and it was about to get so much worse. December rolled around, and Elena started talking about this guy, Marcus, constantly. Their dates, their conversations, their inside jokes. And I listened. Because that's what nice guys do, right? We listen. We support. We're always there. But supporting the girl you're in love with while she falls for someone else? It's like volunteering to be tortured. Michelle started noticing my misery. Dude, you need to either tell her how you feel or move on, she said during one of our inventory sessions. This puppy dog thing is painful to watch. I can't, I told her. What if she says no? What if it ruins everything? Michelle gave me this look, part pity, part frustration. What if she says yes? What if you're throwing away your shot because you're too scared to take it? But fear had its claws in me deep. Fear of rejection, fear of losing her friendship, fear of looking stupid. So I did what scared nice guys do. I doubled down on being supportive. When Marcus stood her up for a date, I was there with ice cream and terrible jokes. When they had their first fight, I spent 3 hours on the phone talking her through it. When she needed someone to drive her to pick up her car from his place after their breakup, guess who volunteered? I thought I was being the perfect friend. I thought I was showing her what a good guy looked like. I thought that eventually, she'd realize I was the one who truly cared about her. I was so wrong, it's embarrassing. January brought a new semester and new hope. Marcus was officially out of the picture, and Elena seemed genuinely happy to spend more time with me. We started having our balcony conversations again, and I convinced myself that this was my moment. But instead of making a move, I made a plan. Because that's what overthinking nice guys do. We strategize instead of act. I planned the perfect confession. I'd wait until Valentine's Day, buy her favorite flowers, daisies, not roses, because she mentioned once that roses were too cliché, write her a heartfelt letter explaining my feelings, and present it all during our shift break. It was going to be perfect, romantic, safe. Michelle caught me practicing my speech in the storage room. Oh no, she said. Please tell me you're not doing what I think you're doing. I'm going to tell her how I feel, I said proudly. With a speech? And flowers? On Valentine's Day? Michelle shook her head. That's not romantic. That's a proposal. You're going to scare her off. But I didn't listen. I was convinced that grand gestures were what women wanted. Movies told me so. Rom-coms confirmed it. Surely, if I just showed her how much I cared, how much I'd thought about this, how perfect we could be together. February 14th arrived, and I had everything ready. The flowers were in my locker. The letter was in my pocket. My heart was beating so hard I thought it might explode. But Elena didn't show up for work that day. She called in sick, but Jake let it slip that she was actually on a spontaneous date with some guy she'd met at a party the weekend before. Another guy. Another confident stranger who had swept her off her feet while I was busy planning the perfect confession. I worked that entire Valentine's Day shift in a daze, those daisies wilting in my locker, that letter burning a hole in my pocket. The next day, Elena came in acting like nothing had happened. She was glowing, talking about this new guy, David, and how different he was. He's not like other guys, she told me during our break. He's mysterious, you know? Like, he doesn't tell me everything he's thinking. It makes me want to figure him out. I'm sitting there, having shared literally every thought in my head with her for months, realizing that my transparency, the thing I thought was my strength, was actually making me invisible. But the real gut punch came later that week. Elena pulled me aside after our shift with this serious look on her face. I need to talk to you about something, she said. I've been thinking about us, about our friendship, and I want to give you something. My heart started racing. This was it. She was going to confess her feelings. All my patience, all my friendship, all my support was finally going to pay off. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small piece of cardboard. It was a hand-drawn card. At the top, in her beautiful handwriting, it said Friend Zone membership card. There was a little portrait of me in the corner, actually really well drawn, and at the bottom, member number 1. She was smiling when she handed it to me. I drew this for you, she said. I know you have feelings for me, and I think you're amazing, but I want you to know that I value our friendship too much to risk it. You're like the brother I never had. The brother she never had. I took that card, and I smiled. I actually smiled and said, "This is hilarious. Thanks." Because that's what nice guys do. We protect everyone else's feelings, even when ours are being destroyed. But inside I was dying. She hugged me, this platonic, friendly hug, and walked away, probably feeling good about how sweetly she'd handled the situation. I stood there in that cafe, holding this piece of cardboard that represented everything I'd done wrong, everything I'd failed to be, everything I'd lost by being too afraid to risk anything. That night, I cried. I'm not ashamed to admit it. I cried like I hadn't cried since I was a kid. The next few weeks were torture. Elena acted like nothing had changed, but everything had changed. Every conversation felt different. Every laugh felt forced. Every moment of her talking about David felt like salt in an open wound. I started making excuses to switch shifts. I became distant, cold even. Elena noticed, of course. "Are you okay?" she asked me one day. "You've been weird since I gave you that card. I thought you'd find it funny." Funny. She thought my heartbreak was funny. But here's the thing I realized years later. She wasn't being cruel. She was being honest. And in her mind, she was being kind. She was trying to let me down easy while preserving what she genuinely saw as a valuable friendship. The problem wasn't Elena. The problem was me. I had spent months building a friendship while secretly wanting a relationship. I had been dishonest about my intentions from day one. I had put her in a position where she had to reject me for something I'd never actually asked for. But it took me losing something even more important than Elena to finally understand what I'd been doing wrong all along. 2 months later, I was offered a scholarship to transfer to a university 3 hours away. Better program, better opportunities, better everything. I should have been excited. Instead, I was terrified. Leaving meant leaving Elena. And despite everything, despite the card, despite the rejection, I still couldn't imagine my life without her in it. So I did what desperate nice guys do. I tried to manufacture one last moment. I planned this elaborate goodbye. I was going to tell her that the transfer was a mistake, that I was staying, that I'd realized she was more important than my future. I was going to make one final grand gesture. Michelle found me rehearsing this speech in the storage room again. "Stop," she said. "Just stop. Do you hear yourself? You're about to throw away your future for a girl who gave you a friendzone card. Do you understand how insane that sounds?" "But I love her," I said. "No, you don't," Michelle replied. "You love the idea of her. You love the fantasy of her choosing you over everyone else. But you don't actually love her, because if you did, you'd want her to be happy, even if it's not with you." That hit me like a truck. She was right. Every single thing I'd done had been about me. My feelings, my needs, my fantasy of how things should be. I had never once considered what Elena actually wanted, what would actually make her happy. I was the villain in my own story. I took the scholarship. I left town without the dramatic goodbye speech. I didn't even tell Elena I was leaving until the day before. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" she asked, and for the first time, she seemed genuinely hurt. "Because I knew I'd try to stay," I said honestly. "And I need to go." She hugged me then. A real hug, not the platonic friend hug from before. "I'm going to miss you," she said. "You've been such a good friend to me." Friend. That word used to cut like a knife. But for the first time, I heard it differently. She valued our friendship. She cared about me, just not in the way I'd wanted. And you know what? That was okay. I've been carrying that friend zone card in my wallet for 8 years now. Not because I'm holding on to hope, but because it reminds me of who I used to be. The guy who was so afraid of rejection that he never actually put himself out there to be rejected. The guy who was so busy being what he thought women wanted that he forgot to be someone worth wanting. Here's what I wish I could tell my 19-year-old self. Elena didn't friend zone me. I friend zoned myself. Every time I chose to be her emotional support instead of showing romantic interest, I was making that choice. Every time I listened to her talk about other guys instead of being one of those guys, I was choosing safety over possibility. The Marcus and Davids of the world weren't better than me because they were jerks. They were more attractive because they were honest about their intentions. They saw a beautiful girl, they wanted to date her, and they said so. No games, no manipulation, no months of fake friendship. Meanwhile, I was playing a game I'd invented in my own head, with rules Elena didn't even know existed. But this story isn't over. Because 8 years later, I ran into Elena again. And what happened next changed everything I thought I knew about that friend zone card. Actually, that's a story for another video. But I'll give you a hint. She still remembered that card. And her perspective on it was very different from what I'd imagined all these years. If you want to hear what happened when we met again, let me know in the comments. But more importantly, if you're living your own version of this story right now, if you're trapped in that nice guy cycle of hoping and waiting and supporting, I want you to know something. You don't have to stay there. The same patterns that kept me stuck for years, the same fear that made me sabotage my own chances, the same nice guy programming that turned me into my own worst enemy. It can all be changed. And here's the secret system I discovered, and it can work for you, too. How I finally stopped being the friend zone guy. Without changing my personality. With one simple move, you can. Stop losing women that initially liked you, because you couldn't play the game. Re-enter the dating scene with confidence, at any age. Pass each and every one of women's secret tests. Unlock the Scrambler is the only system that combines eliminating the nice guy behavior ingrained in so many men with the most cutting-edge discoveries of modern psychology. So you can gain the attraction of women, project personal power, and avoid the "let's just be friends" speech for good. Check the link in the description below. And remember, that friend zone card isn't a prison sentence. It's just information. What you do with that information is up to you. Subscribe if you're ready to stop being the nice guy who never gets chosen and become the man who creates his own choices.